what's your emergency?
The phone rings. A voice on the other end is barely breathing. You can't see them, you can't touch them, you don't even know where they are yet. All you have is your voice and about 90 seconds to figure out if someone is going to live or die tonight. This is not a movie. This happens every single day. And the person on the other end of that line, they didn't choose a glamorous job. They chose one of the most psychologically demanding careers that almost no one talks about. Today, we're stepping inside the world of a 911 dispatcher. What does a 911 dispatcher actually do? Most people think 911 dispatchers just answer the phone and send help. But that's like saying a surgeon just cuts people open. A dispatcher is doing 5 things simultaneously. They're gathering information, who, what, where. They're keeping the caller calm while secretly extracting critical details. They're typing everything in real time into a computer system. They're coordinating police, fire, and ambulance on a separate radio channel. And they're making judgment calls in seconds about which resources to send and how fast. Here's what's wild. In most countries, dispatchers are not considered first responders. They don't get the same mental health support. They don't get the same recognition. But they are the invisible thread connecting every emergency to every outcome. Studies show that what a dispatcher says in the first 60 seconds of a call can directly affect survival rates. One wrong question, one moment of hesitation, and everything downstream changes.
A shift begins. The psychological reality.
Imagine walking into work, and within the first 20 minutes, your first call is a mother who found her infant not breathing. You have to walk her through CPR, step by step, calm voice, no panic in your tone, because your panic becomes her panic, and her panic costs her child precious seconds. You guide her through it. The ambulance arrives. You don't find out what happened. You never do. You close that call, take a breath, and the phone rings again. This is what dispatchers call secondary trauma. You don't see the blood. You're not at the scene, but you hear everything. The screaming, the silence, the moment someone's voice changes from fear to despair. Research in occupational psychology shows that 911 dispatchers develop PTSD at rates comparable to combat veterans. But because they're never at the scene, their trauma is often invisible, even to themselves. Many dispatchers describe a coping mechanism called compartmentalizing. You build a mental box for each traumatic call. You put it in there, you close the lid, and you do it again and again, until one day the boxes start to overflow. The calls that never leave you. Every dispatcher has a call. One specific call that lives rent-free in their head, sometimes for years. Former dispatcher Denise, who worked for 14 years in a major city, describes hers, a teenager who called because his father was having a heart attack. The boy was 13. He was alone. He followed every instruction perfectly, did everything right. The paramedics arrived in 4 minutes, which is fast. His father didn't make it. Denise said the last thing the boy said before the call ended was, "Did I do it right?" She told him yes, because he did. But she cried in the parking lot after her shift, and she thought about that boy for years. This is the emotional weight that doesn't show up in any job description. Dispatchers carry strangers' worst moments so that those strangers don't have to carry them alone, and most of the time, no one even knows their name. In psychology, this is called compassion fatigue, a gradual erosion of empathy caused by constant exposure to others' pain. It doesn't make you hard, it actually makes you more fragile in the places no one can see. So how do they do it? How does a human being stay calm when someone is screaming on the other end of the line? It's not natural, it's trained. Dispatchers go through something called emotional regulation training, learning to consciously separate their internal emotional state from their outward voice and behavior. Think of it like emotional acting, except the performance can save a life. There's a psychological concept called co-regulation. When two people are in communication, their nervous systems actually begin to sync. If a dispatcher panics, the caller panics more. But if a dispatcher stays steady, even artificially steady, the caller's brain unconsciously begins to follow that rhythm. That's why dispatchers are trained to slow their speech, lower their tone, use short sentences. These aren't just communication techniques, they are neurological tools designed to activate the caller's parasympathetic nervous system and pull them back from the edge of panic. In essence, a dispatcher's voice is the first piece of medicine administered at any emergency, before the ambulance, before the defibrillator.
Things you never knew about the job. Here are some things that will change how you think about 911 forever. First, dispatchers can hear things callers don't say. If someone calls and says, "I think I need an ambulance," in a flat, emotionless voice, that's a trained red flag. Emotion in a crisis is normal. The absence of emotion is not. Dispatchers are trained to notice it. Second, some callers cannot speak. Maybe they're hiding, maybe they're too injured. Dispatchers are trained to work with silence, asking yes or no questions, listening for tapping, background sounds, breathing patterns. Third, the most dangerous calls aren't always the loudest. A whispered call, a child who says, "Mommy is sleeping and won't wake up," in a cheerful voice. These are the ones that experienced dispatchers say chill them the most. Fourth, dispatchers often know the outcome before the responders do. They stay on the line, they hear things change, sometimes they hear things end. And then the next call comes in and they answer it the same way they answer every single one. Thank you for calling 911. What is your emergency? Next time you or someone you love calls 911, there's a human being on the other end who chose this. Not for the pay, dispatchers are often among the lowest paid emergency workers. Not for the recognition, most people never even know their name. They chose it because someone has to be the voice in the dark. Someone has to stay calm so you don't have to. Someone has to carry those moments home with them so that you can go home and forget. That's the life of a 911 dispatcher. Invisible, essential, unforgettable, at least to the people they saved. If you want to see more POV deep dives like this, the untold psychological side of jobs most people never think about, subscribe, because next week we're going somewhere even darker.